On this episode 110 of the podcast, I'm going to talk about cricket, lotto, and mountain biking. So, let's get into it, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Luke Who's Talking podcast. I was just watching a video on YouTube of somebody talking about a car, and they seem to be talking really fast like this. Like, they have quite a quick speech, and it's a little bit. If you're not watching it and you're just listening to it, I was like, it seemed a little bit weird because they're talking really fast like this about an Aston Martin. I thought they need to slow it down a little bit. Anyway, let's get into the show. A very boring one, in my estimation. I was just thinking earlier about how the show, I think it's more like into an anecdotal situation, and it is very much a show about nothing, at this point. So, How do you feel about that? I don't know. Let me know. And everybody, now, I was talking to somebody the other day. I sent them a message, and I said, "Do you think this summer of cricket has been the worst?" Now, this is the summer of Test cricket here in Australia. This is very much a local topic. So international listeners, I don't know, you can skip this bit or you can listen, whatever. But yeah, is this summer of cricket been the worst? Now, there's been specifically Test cricket is what I'm talking about. So the Australian cricket team have played 5 tests. They've played 2 test matches against the West Indies, and they played 3 against South Africa. And the results in all of them, like, the reason why I'm saying is this the worst series or the worst summer of Test cricket ever is because each of the 5 games have been pretty much an absolute flogging. So they played 2 tests against the West Indies. Now, in the 80s, the West Indies were a great team. I think pretty well throughout the whole 1980s, the West Indies were a great Test cricket team. They were absolutely superb. And also even into the 90s, they were a great team, right? So, but in recent times, they've been not very good. They're better at sort of 2020 cricket. I'm not sure what their one-day form is. I think that's a bit average as well, but their Test cricket over the last sort of 20, 25 years has been absolutely pretty awful. Now, they played 2 tests against... Now, just a quick explainer of Test cricket. What happens is, so there's a coin toss. One team will bat first. The second team will bat, right? And then the first team will bat again, and the second team will then have to chase runs or get a score in that the 4th innings. Now, what can happen is you can win by over an innings, but I'll get into that in a minute because Australia beat South Africa over an innings in one of the games. So now they played 2 tests against the West Indies, and Australia won by an average of 291 runs, 291.5 runs. They won both tests. I think they won one of the tests by 400 or something, and I just saw it and I thought, wow, that is why would you go and watch Test cricket if that's happening? I love Test cricket. It is the best form of cricket, in my opinion. I'm not a one-day cricket. Yeah, I like it. I do not like 2020 at all. I do not like 2020 cricket. One-day cricket is good, and Test cricket is good. But when you are winning they played 2 games against the West Indies and they won by an average of 291 runs. That is ridiculous. Now, so they played, so that's West Indies. Then they played 3 tests against South Africa. Now, South Africa, 5 years ago, were a great team. And sort of that kind of 2006, 7, 8, 9, they were a good, and probably all the way up to 2014, 15, sort of 16 times. South Africa were a great they were an absolutely great Test cricket team. Whenever they came to Australia, you'd be like, there's a good chance they would beat them. Like, it'd probably more often than not, they could beat Australia on home turf, right? So they were an absolute, like up to, recently, like 5 years ago, they were an absolutely great Test cricket team now. But they have fallen hard. So the first Test, Australia won by 6 wickets, okay? I should probably explain that. So basically that means in every innings, 11 people bat, so you have to get 10 people out or 10 wickets for the innings to be over. So that basically means Australia had to chase a target. So South Africa must have batted first, then Australia batted and South Africa batted again. So then there's a target that Australia had to get in this game. And they got it by only losing 4 wickets. So 4 people got out on their way to getting the target. So that means they won by 6 wickets. Okay. Now, the second Test, Australia won by an innings and 182 runs. So that means that Australia only batted once in the game. So if you bat, say South Africa must have batted first again. So let's just say they get 100 runs. And then Australia will say, for example, they get 500. Now, South Africa have to get at least 400 runs in that situation because they're 400 behind to make Australia bat again. So if they got 250, for example, there's still 150 runs behind. So if they get out for 250 or whatever, they've made 350 runs in their 2 bats, where Australia has made, say, 500. So Australia do not have to bat again. So they have won by, say, an inning, like in this situation, an innings and 150 runs. I hope that makes sense. So, Australia won by an innings and 182 runs in that situation. And the third Test was a draw against South Africa. So, what can happen in a draw situation is basically in the whatever team is batting last, if the bowling side do not get all of them out before the end of the play. So a Test cricket usually goes for 5 days. It's the 5th day, and if they do not get all the wickets, dismiss all the batsmen for the team that is batting last, it is a draw. So that's what's happened there. So they've had 291.5 average run wins against West Indies, 6 wicket win against South Africa in the first game, pretty easy, an innings and 182 runs in the second innings, which is an absolute slaughter, and then a draw in the third Test. So I think it's possibly one of, at least that I can remember or have sort of taken notice of, possibly one of the worst summers of Test cricket ever. I've talked about Test cricket for far too long. Jingle, next topic. So everybody, you like to have I'm sure I'm not the only person who likes to have a little bit of a fantasy or a little bit of a ponder or think about what I would like to do if I ever won Lotto. And I don't know, I've been thinking about this a little bit recently. And so, for example, tomorrow, the 21st, I'm not recording this on, you're listening to this on Friday, which is the 20th. So tomorrow here in Australia, Tats Lotto, they've got a $5 million draw. So what would I do if I won $5 million in the Lotto? I think, and this is just a general thing, because I'm sure everybody was like, well, if I ever won Lotto, I'd probably do this. So as I said, I've been thinking about it recently. I don't really know why, but I think what I would do is I would buy myself somewhere to live, maybe buy a second property as well, or maybe 2 other cheaper places to rent out. But then if you've got the money, you don't really need the rental income. So that's an interesting thought. One thing that I think I would do is give a few of my friends maybe 10 grand or something, right? Give them a bit of a monetary gift. I do have some friends that have mortgages, so I'm sure they would be appreciative of some of that capital. But here's a question though. If I gifted you just say, for example, I have two friends, one of which has a mortgage, the other one doesn't. And if I gifted them the same amount of money, is it okay for me to expect the person who has the mortgage for me to be like, this is for your mortgage? Whereas the other person who doesn't have the mortgage can just put their 10K on red. I think maybe I could say to the person who has the mortgage, I would like you, like, this is for your house, right? But in reality, it is unfair for me to put limitations on this capital where the other people don't have any limitations. Like, they're limited because they're a homeowner. That's a bit unfair in that context. Anyway, so I'd probably gift some money. And then that's probably about it, if I'm honest. It would depend. I might buy myself an older vehicle. I do desire an old Rolls Royce or Jaguar or something like that. There's something like a nice old Alfa Romeo or something like that, so I can put my cap on and like drive around in leather gloves and all that. So yeah, there are a couple of things I'd probably spend my money on, and with the rest of it, I'd probably just like invest it and get like use that for some passive income. So I can just like pay bills and that sort of stuff. So that, some thoughts. One thing I would try to do, I would try to set up my remaining capital so that I only have limited access to it, or it will like maybe give me so much a week. Because you see these people, it's not uncommon to hear about people who've won Lotto and they just spend all the money and they've got nothing at the end of it. And you're like, okay. Buying boats and all this. I have no interest in a boat. I would consider maybe a motorhome because I'm an old man, right? But apart from that, that's probably it. Anyway, thoughts? What would you maybe spend dosh on if you ever won Lotto, or would you not like it? Would you like that to remain a fantasy, and you don't want to, you don't want that at all? Anyway, everybody, I'll get to the next thing. So a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't even in the new year. Last year, in between Christmas and New Year's, I believe it was. Yeah, I think that's pretty right. A friend and I, we went mountain biking, my friend Sam. Now, if you hop over onto the vlog channel, there is a video. Last week's video was us mountain biking, and there's another one coming next week as well. So if you hop on over to Luke Who's Vlogging, you can watch a bit of mountain biking stuff. And I've had some feedback about the camera angle. I'm aware it is unsatisfactory. So I think, because I have a chest mount, so you set it up for a particular riding position. But of course, you'll stand up. Sometimes you'll be sitting down. Sometimes you might be back on the seat, a bit forward more, and it all changes. So I think what I'm going to do is buy a handlebar mount so I can put I have a DJI Action, the first gen. So I'm going to buy myself a clamp or a mount so I can mount that onto the front of the bike. So it will be hopefully a consistent view of stuff. I have one coming actually for the road bike, so when it gets here, I'll be able to put that on, and we will see how that goes with that. Anyway, now I don't do a lot of mountain biking at all. I do have a mountain bike, but I don't ride it that often whatsoever. But the mountain bike, it's good for different skills. I feel like something I should do more. One thing though, right? We went to where the mountain bike trails were, and I think it was November. We had a lot of rain in November, sort of late October, November time, and most of the mountain bike trails actually where we went were closed because now I'd heard, I think it was a couple of days later or something on the radio that they had a geologist there checking it all out to make because obviously there's been slips and stuff. So I've had an expert there, geologist or whatever, checking it all out. So now they can start rebuilding and repairing the trails. And because we got there and we're like, oh, all these trails are closed. Well, that's awful. And I was sort of like, oh, like, yeah, they probably did get some damage in the rain, but surely they'd be open again. Apparently not, though. So they must have got like a lot of damage and stuff. So that was a little bit disappointing. I was secretly kind of okay about it, yet also disappointed by it. But yeah, anyway, we went for a ride and it was good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, we'll wrap it up after this. Well, everybody, that is it for this episode of the podcast. A lot of talk about cricket, a little bit of talk about Lotto, and I don't know, the mountain biking very briefly. That was basically to plug the videos, I guess, really. Anyway, everybody, look, hope you've enjoyed the show, and yeah, you can send me an email, tweet me and all that jazz, and like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.